whispering in the trees. It's two cities and they're only.
And again, I have to say this because it is an absolute misnomer and not completely accurate to say that George Pabay was unwilling to talk to anyone. It got to a point, as a matter of fact, I was on my way to see Charlie Tuna to pick up a check for an East Chicago program that was going to be sponsored by George Pabay, at that time the mayor, and had talked to Charlie on the phone. I had talked to Mayor Pabay. He was going to not always be the one, but he was going to be on the program. And then this stuff developed within 24 hours of the time. And I thought, well, I could still go and pick up the check, and then what is going to happen then? It brings a whole lot of different issues into it. I decided to just let it rest and see what happened. Well, we all know what had happened. However, had there not have been these legal issues with George Pabay, I feel 100% confident that he would have been in the studio talking about East Chicago politics. Probably not every week, but some representative from his office would be here. And I know Damian Rico, who I know you're very, very familiar with, does come on D-Lo's show. I believe, I don't know what day, is it Mondays? Could be Mondays. I believe it is because Ray was on this morning.
Okay.
Who's Ray?
Ray,
the young gentleman who used to do some radio here on WJOB, and now he's doing sports. Ray Flores for East Chicago. He loves to do radio.
Yes, he loves it.
You love to do radio.
I love radio.
I remember the first time. Well, you only can meet really for the first time, but I met you when you were a guest with Therm Free.
Yes. Therm.
And I was just trying to do whatever I could to try and learn what was going on, et cetera, et cetera. And it turned out that one of your relatives was married to my niece, Myrna Maldonado. And that was years ago and years ago. So it's funny how there's 6 degrees of separation just about with everybody. You're listening to the Region Underground on Party Line 219. Myrna Maldonado's in the studio. And if you have any questions or comments for Myrna, I'm sure she can handle your phone calls at area code 219-845-1100. In the meantime, I'll just continue to grill you. Where were you?
East Chicago. That's where I live. That's where I love.
Well, it's interesting that you've lived there forever, right?
Well, I actually was born in East Chicago and grew up in Hammond. So I went.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did.
What part of Hammond?
Councilman Salinas is a district out there by Columbia Park and Columbia School.
What is that, 4?
So I was like 1 block away from Roxana.
Okay.
So off of Shell and Atlas and Chestnut.
Is that close to, I don't know whose district that is. Well, Adrian's is in East Chicago, though it seems like Hammond.
Right.
And that is Michigan. Is that Michigan Street?
White Oak is the actual cutoff. So on the one side is East Chicago and the other side is Hammond.
Though they have the, you have to know this, but if you don't, you're going to love me.
What?
They have the nachos recipe from the Latin Lounge.
Yeah,
I'm sure you know.
Yeah, they do. They're great.
Right. Yeah, they're the best.
They are the best.
Yeah, the nachos are pretty hard to say. I don't like them wherever you go, but they use a I don't know what kind of cheese they use on them or what they do that make them different. But I do love their hot sauce there as well.
I know.
Yeah,
it's very good.
It's very it's very flavorful, and it's got a little giddy up to it. In fact, all their food is pretty good, and Adrian's always been really, really nice to me, and every time that I've gone, and I really need to go over there a little more often. But we have some great taco places in Hammond as well. El Taco Real, I'm sure that you have lost your way and ended up in there at one point or another.
Yes, I do go there a lot. Actually, every time I meet with a Hammond city official, I'm there. So yeah.
What kind of who? Since you mentioned that, now the door is open. Well, who from what Hammond city officials would you be meeting with? Oh my goodness, I have such
friends. I have such friends in Hammond.
But what, on an official or an unofficial?
No, both.
Really?
Yeah, I work with you. We have to work
Never
with
met me on an unofficial or an official.
Actually, I met you at Freddy's one time. Remember we were there at Freddy's?
No.
Yeah, we had the Freddy's. We had the preacher platter, and we had drinks.
I do remember
okay,
you brought a few folks in to Freddy's on either a Wednesday or a Thursday night, and I appreciate that. You know, Freddy's is a long a long-term establishment in ham. It's an icon. It's a legend, really, and it's nice that they're still around because they've changed hands only once, as far as I know. But speaking of that, what are some of your favorite places in East Chicago that you like to go to? Because I have only been to Garibaldi's, really, to be honest with you. I used to go before your day again to Taco Joe's. That was one of the greatest places in the harbor when Fred Halperin and Alberts was in the harbor around that time. Well, he was there for a long time also. Taco Joe's was a very well-known place amongst the inland employees where my dad worked, and he used to take us over there like once a week for some really great tacos. But what are some of your favorite places?
Well, I have to say that Michoacano restaurant on Broadway is probably one of my favorites.
Really? You got a favorite item on the menu?
My favorite is carne asada. I love that.
I don't even know what that is.
It's
is that a city in Texas?
It's the skirt steak. The way they make it with the onions and the everything is nice and it's just good.
Something you slap around tortilla?
So or? Absolutely.
Okay.
Make little taquitos out of them.
You
it's
make
really
make
nice.
your own little.
Right.
I don't know. See, gringos like me think that any time you have a tortilla and you put something on it, that's a taco. Is that true?
Well, you know, we Mexicans, we put eggs in our tortillas.
Is that a taco?
Yeah, it's a taco.
That's a taco.
A taquito, right.
So if it's
put some beans in it, it's a little taquito.
What's the eggs? The breakfast dish, ranchero, eggs ranchero,
Huevos rancheros.
Where
Huevos?
Huevos
Rancheros.
Huevos wobble, but they don't fall down.